Hello friends. Let's imagine someone born under the zodiac sign of Cancer and in the year of the goat. Sounds dreamy already, right? But this cosmic combo is so much more than emotional tides and gentle souls. This is a person built from poetry and porcelain, but who also holds a quiet, iron will beneath that soft, sensitive surface. What happens when the nurturing moon energy of Cancer meets the earthy, artistic spirit of the goat? You get someone complex. Someone who is loyal to the bone, deeply intuitive, a little mysterious, sometimes maddeningly indecisive, but always full of heart. Let's dive into this fascinating hybrid of East and West, and discover the emotional blueprint of the Cancer goat personality. Love, a fortress made of silk. Love for a Cancer goat isn't just something they experience, it's something they become. It's not a chapter in their story, it's the entire genre. Love to them is layered, all-consuming, poetic, and sacred. It wraps around them like a cherished memory and settles into the rhythm of their daily life. When a Cancer goat falls in love, they fall with their whole soul, no parachute, no second-guessing. It's not about excitement or adrenaline, it's about emotional permanence. They don't flirt just for fun or date just to pass time. They love to build. They want something that feels like destiny whispered in their ear. Think handwritten letters, warm hugs at the door, inside jokes whispered across a crowded room, and yes, remembering the anniversary of your dog's adoption like it's Valentine's Day. This rare blend of Cancer's nurturing energy and goat's soulful introspection creates a person who craves emotional safety above all else. They need to know that their heart is held with care. It's not enough for them to be desired, they want to be deeply known. Known in the way that someone remembers their triggers, celebrates their weirdness, and senses their sadness before a word is spoken. They're constantly scanning the emotional atmosphere for signs of stability, harmony, and truth. One inconsistency, one moment of emotional dishonesty, and they'll start to withdraw, not out of punishment, but out of a deep need to protect their fragile interior. When they feel safe, though, they open like a secret garden, blooming in ways few people ever get to see. Underneath their often gentle and quiet exterior is a love that runs ocean deep. At first, they might appear shy, even a little reserved. But what most don't see is the intensity that simmers just below the surface. They'll remember what you said to them 3 years ago and bring it back at the exact moment you need to hear it. They'll sense your anxiety before you even name it and calm you down with nothing more than a touch. Their emotional intuition is almost supernatural. They don't need big declarations, instead, they'll make you feel love in the way they fold your laundry, listen with their entire being, and support your dreams as if they were their own. Their affection is sensory, spiritual, and sensual, a deeply felt experience for both them and their partner. But here's the hard line: they do not do casual. They don't tolerate ambiguity, breadcrumbing, or emotional immaturity. If you're not all in, don't bother. They don't believe in, "Let's see where this goes." For them, love is either a sacred promise or a closed door. They need structure in their emotional world. Commitment isn't just romantic to them, it's necessary. They're not going to stick around if you're inconsistent, emotionally distant, or careless with their heart. And they don't give second chances lightly. Once you break their trust, it's like burning a bridge that can't be rebuilt. They may smile on the outside, but inside, the doors are locked, and the lights are off. In a world that often prizes independence and detachment, Cancer goats are walking reminders of what it means to truly connect. They're the kind of people who still believe in handwritten love notes, long talks under the stars, and growing old together. They are builders of emotional sanctuaries, the kind of love that feels like a warm house on a cold night. Their hearts are gentle but resilient, sensitive but strong, and once they give their love, they give it entirely. You won't just be loved, you'll be known, cherished, protected, and chosen again and again, every single day. To love a Cancer goat is to experience something rare, a romance that doesn't fade, but deepens. One that grows more meaningful over time, like a classic song that reveals new emotions every time you hear it. Marriage, a cozy fortress with floral curtains. A Cancer goat in marriage is the living embodiment of comfort, care, and emotional sanctuary. Imagine walking into a home that smells like your favorite memories, where the lighting is soft, the corners are filled with sentimental details, and the atmosphere wraps around you like a weighted blanket on a stormy night. That's what life with a Cancer goat feels like, home, in the most soulful sense of the word. They are domestic architects of intimacy. From crafting a perfect Sunday morning breakfast tradition to turning small anniversaries into sacred rituals, they take the mundane and make it magical. Their idea of love in marriage isn't flashy or performative, it's deeply felt. They want to build a life that reflects mutual tenderness, something warm, personal, private, and full of meaning. Like a Pinterest board, yes, but one that breathes. They are intuitive partners, often sensing what their spouse needs long before it's voiced. Cancer goats have an uncanny ability to read between the lines, to pick up on emotional shifts with the precision of a radar. You don't need to say, "I had a hard day." They already know, and they've already fluffed your pillow, run you a bath, and put on your favorite comfort movie. In marriage, this makes them almost psychic in their support. They anticipate needs, soothe worries, and create an emotional rhythm in the relationship that makes you feel seen without ever having to shout. They'll notice your unspoken fears, your small victories, and your subtle sighs. This isn't just attentiveness, it's love rendered as constant emotional presence. They thrive on turning cohabitation into connection and routines into rituals. Their loyalty in marriage is unwavering, almost mythic in scale. This isn't, "I'm here until it gets hard," love. This is, "I'll fight for you in front of strangers and then hold you through your breakdown at 3 a.m., love. They'll defend you in conversations you're not even present for. They'll stand by your side during your lowest moments and help rebuild you piece by piece. The birthday gifts they give won't be off a convenience store shelf. They'll be carefully chosen, emotionally symbolic, and likely wrapped with an attached letter that'll leave you in tears. They remember. They always remember. They keep the emotional history of the relationship like a sacred text, and they draw on it to deepen the connection over time. For them, marriage is a long story written in small gestures. But beneath all this warmth lies a deep emotional sensitivity that cannot be ignored. Cancer goats need reassurance, not because they're insecure, but because they feel everything. Silence isn't just silence to them, it can feel like abandonment. A distant tone isn't just a mood, it's a wound. Emotional distance, no matter how unintentional, can unsettle them deeply. This is why clear, compassionate communication is absolutely critical. They won't always tell you what's wrong outright. They might withdraw, become quiet, or try to handle it themselves, until it starts to eat away at their inner world. It's up to their partner to notice, to care, and to ask, not in a passing way, but with real curiosity and presence. "Are you okay?" needs to be more than routine, it has to be real. And when they do open up, their truth comes out like poetry, fragile, beautiful, and incredibly raw. If you listen with love, they will trust you even more deeply. If you don't, they'll start to build walls behind their floral curtains. In marriage, Cancer goats are nurturers, defenders, dreamers, and quiet warriors. They bring consistency in a chaotic world, emotional depth in a culture of surface-level connection, and a softness that feels like shelter. They won't always shout their needs, but they will meet yours with almost supernatural grace. All they ask in return is presence, real, honest presence, and a love that holds space for their many emotional layers. If you give them that, they will build a life with you that feels less like a marriage and more like belonging. A marriage with a Cancer goat isn't perfect, but it is real, and it is sacred. It's a slow-burning fire that never goes out, even in the coldest of nights. Sex, sensual symphony, not a quick playlist. For a Cancer goat, sex isn't a standalone event, it's an extension of emotional energy, an unspoken dialogue, a sacred performance composed entirely of feeling. To them, physical intimacy is a soul-to-soul transaction, not just skin-to-skin. They don't just want to touch, they want to connect. That's why a night with them isn't about fireworks and frenzy, it's about a slow-burning symphony of sensations. Their approach is deliberate, poetic, immersive, like a favorite song that builds in layers, becoming richer with each note. When they're in bed with someone they trust, it's not about performance or ego. It's about experience, the kind that lingers long after the lights are off and the sheets have cooled. They want it to mean something. They want it to change you. Their greatest strength in intimacy is their extraordinary emotional intuition. Cancer goats are lovers who don't wait for verbal cues. They read your body language, your breathing, your silences. They can sense when you need gentleness versus when you crave intensity, often without a word spoken. Their ability to be fully present allows them to pick up on nuances others miss entirely, a shift in your gaze, a tension in your shoulders, the exact moment your walls begin to fall. That empathy becomes the foundation of their sensuality. They're not here to rush. They're here to explore every inch of you, every emotion beneath the surface. The result is a sexual connection that feels not just pleasurable, but healing. It's not just about desire, it's about being seen and honored in your most vulnerable state. Their sexual style leans romantic and deeply sensory. You won't find them initiating with blunt moves or rehearsed lines. Instead, they'll create a space that feels like a dream: low lighting, soft fabrics, slow music, an entire emotional environment designed to help both of you drop your guards. They believe that sex should feel safe and sacred, not performative or pressured. And while they may not jump into kink or bold experimentation immediately, this isn't due to lack of imagination, it's about emotional calibration. For them, intimacy only truly blooms once there's trust. Once that trust is earned, the sensuality becomes deeper, more fluid, and endlessly creative. They're lovers who understand that real intimacy requires vulnerability, and they don't just welcome that, they thrive in it. Now, let's talk about the hidden fire. Because while Cancer goats are gentle on the outside, within them lies a deep, unspoken intensity. Their sexual energy isn't loud, it simmers. At first, it may appear subtle, even shy, but that's only because they're testing emotional waters. But once they feel fully safe, their passion becomes elemental. There's a primal, almost lunar heat inside them, one that takes its time to rise, but when it does, it's unforgettable. They may surprise even the most experienced partner with their depth, endurance, and emotional ferocity. Their wild side doesn't scream, it consumes. It's a kind of lovemaking that feels less like an act and more like a storm slowly swallowing the horizon. Being sexually involved with a Cancer goat is not about checking boxes, it's about surrendering to something real. They don't just want your body, they want your story, your silence, your breath, your trust. And in return, they'll offer a kind of intimacy that feels like coming home, not just to someone else, but to yourself. Theirs is a sensuality that teaches, heals, and lingers. A slow, sensual symphony that, once heard, is never forgotten. Friendship, the guardian of secrets and snacks. A Cancer goat friend is the kind of presence you never forget, not because they demand the spotlight, but because they quietly become essential. They're not just friends, they're emotional historians, memory keepers, and comforting constants. They'll remember your favorite pizza toppings, the exact tone your voice takes when you're pretending to be fine, and even the anniversary of your pet's passing. Not because they're trying to impress you, but because that's just how deeply they care. If you mention something once, it's filed in their emotional archive forever. They're the kind of person who will text you when a song you love pops up, send you a meme exactly when you need a laugh, or notice that you've been a little off and show up with soup and silence, because they know sometimes comfort speaks louder than conversation. They play the mom friend role with pride, but don't mistake that for being dull or overly serious. They're the ones who make sure everyone gets home safely after a night out, who carry tissues in their bag, just in case, who somehow always have snacks and life advice at the ready. But they're not just nurturers, they're deeply intuitive mirrors. They absorb the emotional energy of a room in seconds and adjust accordingly. If you're having a bad day, they know when to lean in and when to give space. If you're celebrating something huge, they're already thinking about how to make it feel even more special. Their care is subtle but powerful. They'll hype you up without making it about them. They'll comfort you without demanding credit, and they'll hold your secrets as if they were their own. Cancer goats don't build friendships quickly or casually. They're not interested in shallow bonds or surface-level conversation. They might be quiet in big crowds, leaning toward the edges rather than the center. But that's only because they're studying everything, feeling the energy, watching who's real and who's playing a part. They choose their friends carefully, deliberately. Trust, to them, is sacred. But once you're in for life. To be in a Cancer goat circle is to be adopted. They'll celebrate your wins like a proud sibling, show up for your heartbreak like a therapist who bakes, and defend you like a warrior. Their loyalty is fierce, unshakable, and often underestimated. You don't realize how much they're doing, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, until you feel what it's like to lose their presence. But part of their friendship style includes one critical pattern: the need to disappear. It's nothing personal. It doesn't mean they're mad. It means they're recharging. Cancer goats carry so much emotional weight, their own and everyone else's, that sometimes they need to vanish into their shell to breathe. They'll go quiet, miss a few calls, maybe skip a hangout or two. And then, just when you start to wonder, they'll reappear, quietly, sweetly, bearing your favorite coffee or a funny doodle or a random nostalgic playlist they made just for you. They don't need big reunions. They just slide back in like they never left, and suddenly, things feel whole again. That's their magic, their ability to retreat without disconnecting, to return without fanfare, and to pick up every thread they left behind. Their humor, by the way, is underrated. Cancer goats are quietly hilarious, dry, quirky, unexpectedly witty. Their timing is impeccable, and their sarcasm comes out in little bursts that feel like gifts. They'll never be the class clown, but they're the one whose one-liners become inside jokes for years. They're not loud, but they're unforgettable. Friendship with a Cancer goat is a rare treasure. It's the kind that evolves, deepens, and grows stronger with time. They are caretakers of emotion, defenders of your dignity, and soft landing places in a hard world. But there's one unspoken rule: never, ever take their kindness for granted. Because once they sense that their loyalty is being exploited, they'll close the door, and they won't open it again. Not out of spite, but out of deep self-preservation. If you're lucky enough to have a Cancer goat as a friend, cherish them. Show up for them the way they always show up for you. Because under that quiet exterior is a heart that beats for others, fiercely, gently, and without limits. Business career: the creative empath with a hustler's heart. You might not expect a Cancer goat to dominate in the business world, but that's only because their power isn't loud, flashy, or ego-driven. It's the kind of strength that moves beneath the surface, quietly restructuring everything around them with grace, insight, and unshakable purpose. They may not burst into meetings barking orders or puffing their chest, but give them time in any environment, and you'll watch them gently take command. Their authority comes from observation, intuition, and the kind of steady leadership that makes people feel safe and inspired. They don't need to be the center of attention, because they're usually the ones actually holding everything together behind the scenes. And when they do speak up, people listen, not because they talk the most, but because what they say is always worth hearing. Cancer goats thrive in environments that reward emotional intelligence, creative vision, and teamwork over brute force or ruthless ambition. They are natural collaborators, often the glue that holds teams together without anyone fully realizing it. They anticipate what their colleagues need, make space for quieter voices, and lead through example instead of intimidation. They're the ones who stay late to help a stressed-out coworker, who notice morale is low and bring in coffee or kind words, who mediate conflict with empathy and clarity. They know how to bring the right people together and make everyone feel like they belong. And while they might not raise their hand first in a brainstorming session, their ideas often end up being the ones that actually move the needle, quietly, effectively, and with long-lasting impact. Thanks to the emotional depth of Cancer and the artistic soul of the goat, they are particularly suited for careers that blend creativity with care. They're the teachers who make students feel seen. They're the designers who can turn feelings into visuals. They're the writers who tap into truths most people are afraid to say. They're the therapists who seem to know exactly what you've been carrying without you having to explain. They're even chefs who turn a dish into an emotional experience. No matter the medium, their work speaks to people. It connects. It moves. It matters. They're driven not by fame or accolades but by purpose, meaning, and the desire to make life just a little more beautiful or a little more bearable, for themselves and for others. But let's be clear, behind their soft exterior is a formidable work ethic. Cancer goats may be gentle in their approach, but they're incredibly tenacious when it comes to their goals. Once they set their mind to something, they're relentless, not loud about it, but persistent in a way that's impossible to stop. They'll put in the hours, do the behind-the-scenes grind, and hold themselves to standards that most would find exhausting. They're internally motivated, often fueled by a quiet desire to prove their worth, not through flash or bragging, but through results. And because they take pride in the details, their work tends to be high quality, emotionally intelligent, and incredibly refined. Don't be fooled by the softness. Inside, there's a fire that burns steady and strong, especially when their work is tied to something they deeply care about. One of their most underrated business superpowers is their ability to read the room. In meetings, they instinctively know when to speak up and when to let others lead. In negotiations, they pick up on what's not being said, which gives them a psychological edge most don't even notice. They don't bluff, they don't need to. Their strength is their calm. And in leadership roles, they inspire loyalty not through charisma, but through compassion, consistency, and quiet wisdom. They don't crave power, but they deserve it, because they wield it with humility. Their teams tend to stick around, work hard, and genuinely trust them, because they've created an atmosphere of emotional safety and shared purpose. They lead not with ego, but with empathy. And that's what makes their influence so lasting. In the world of business and career, Cancer goats are a rare combination: creative but grounded, empathic but strategic, soft but fiercely driven. They are the type who might start in the background, and then, a few years later, own the company. Not through brute ambition, but through trust, vision, and quiet excellence. They aren't here for applause. They're here to build something meaningful, and they usually do. Dark sides. The storm beneath the smile. Now we step into the shadows, because even those born under nurturing moons and gentle stars cast long silhouettes. The Cancer goat is known for their warmth, tenderness, and loyalty, but underneath that softness is a complicated emotional terrain filled with unseen tempests. Their greatest strength, sensitivity, can also be their greatest weakness. They don't just feel their own emotions, they absorb the world's. A passing remark, a misunderstood tone, a friend forgetting to text back, these seemingly small events can become emotional hurricanes. Their inner world is delicate and intricately wired, and while it gives them profound empathy, it also sets them up for frequent emotional overwhelm. They often carry feelings too big for their bodies, too layered for words, and too quietly buried for others to notice. And when those feelings aren't acknowledged or processed, they can spiral, not outward in anger, but inward in silent suffering. The Cancer goat's instinct is rarely to confront. Instead, they retreat. When something feels off, their first reaction is to pull back into their emotional shell and nurse their wounds in silence. But here's the problem: the people around them don't always realize they're hurt, because they're rarely vocal about it. This can create a dangerous kind of emotional limbo in relationships. Their partner or friend might think everything's fine, while the Cancer goat is quietly stockpiling unspoken disappointments and hurts. They don't want to rock the boat, so they say nothing. But that silence builds pressure, and eventually, it bursts. Often in the form of passive-aggressive behavior, cold distance, or sudden emotional withdrawal. They don't mean to punish, they just don't know how to speak the truth without fear of being misunderstood or dismissed. Their emotional patterns can lean moody and unpredictable. One moment, they're engaged and supportive, the next, they're withdrawn and unreachable. This isn't manipulation, it's protection. When they feel overwhelmed, they shut down to preserve their fragile inner state. Their pessimism can also surface unexpectedly, especially when things start to feel uncertain or unstable. They tend to brace for the worst, not because they want to, but because it feels safer to be prepared for pain than to be blindsided by it. In relationships, this can look like self-sabotage, pushing people away before they can be abandoned. And in life, it can keep them stuck in comfort zones, too scared to leap toward bigger dreams because failure feels too personal, too final. Their deep craving for emotional harmony, while beautiful, can also lead to emotional martyrdom. They may tolerate mistreatment, overextend themselves, or swallow their own needs just to avoid making waves. They'll carry resentment quietly, for years if left unchecked. And yes, when pushed too far, the Cancer goat's shadows can become manipulative, though never with cruelty as the goal. Their passive aggressiveness is often a desperate attempt to express pain without confrontation. They might drop vague hints instead of being direct. Use guilt instead of assertion. Play the victim rather than claim their power. Not because they want to control, but because directness terrifies them. Their emotional world is so fragile that open conflict feels like tearing down a house of glass with bare hands. They don't want to hurt anyone. They just want to feel safe again. And unfortunately, sometimes they resort to unhealthy strategies to try to get there. The path forward for a Cancer goat lies in deep self-awareness. When they begin to understand their own emotional patterns, they can start communicating them instead of hiding behind them. Therapy can be transformative, not just as a healing space, but as a place where they can learn to be assertive, grounded, and self-protective without being defensive. Creative outlets are vital as well: writing, painting, music, movement, anything that allows them to give form to the storm inside. Because once their feelings are given space to breathe, they become less volatile, less unpredictable, and more manageable. And perhaps most importantly, Cancer goats thrive when surrounded by people who love them deeply, not just for their sweetness, but for their complexity. Friends and partners who don't just offer comfort, but who challenge them to grow, to speak, to risk. Underneath the smile of a Cancer goat is a full emotional ecosystem, equal parts sun and thunder. To love one is to witness both. And to be one is to walk the lifelong path of learning how to soften without breaking, to feel deeply without drowning, and to speak truth even when the voice trembles. It's not an easy road, but when they embrace their full emotional depth with clarity and courage, they become not just gentle hearts, but powerful souls. Life goals: building a world that feels like home. Cancer goats are not driven by empty ambition or the hollow buzz of applause. They don't chase status for status's sake, nor do they care to be recognized in rooms that feel emotionally cold. What they long for, above all else, is emotional fulfillment and belonging. A life where what they do, who they love, and where they exist all mean something. They aren't interested in temporary thrills or surface-level success. They want depth. They want connection that nourishes, routines that comfort, and goals that feed the spirit rather than just the ego. For a Cancer goat, success isn't about standing out, it's about feeling whole. That's why they often measure life not by accomplishments, but by how safe, connected, and true it all feels. Their deepest ambition is to create something that carries emotional weight, a legacy not made of titles, but of meaning. They want to contribute to the world in a way that leaves behind more than just footprints. Whether it's raising a compassionate family, building a healing-centered business, founding a community project that uplifts others, or producing artwork that speaks to souls, it must feel personal. They need to see themselves in their work. They need to know that what they're doing matters not just externally, but internally, that it reflects their values, their softness, and their quietly fierce heart. They are not interested in high-stakes drama or competitive hustle culture. What they seek instead is something that resonates deeply, a path that aligns with who they are at their core. Their dream life is one that balances emotional intimacy, personal purpose, and sacred solitude. They fantasize about a home that feels like sanctuary, not just aesthetically, but spiritually. A place where they can be vulnerable without fear, creative without pressure, and still without shame. They long for a partner who is emotionally attuned, gentle yet strong, someone who values comfort and connection over conquest. Their work must have meaning, whether it's helping people, creating beauty, or offering emotional insight, it needs to be real. But equally, they know they need space. Solitude is their emotional recharge. A walk alone, a quiet corner with a book, a Sunday where nothing is expected. It's not about isolation, it's about restoration. Once they find that rhythm, the balance between giving and retreating, building and resting, they become extraordinary. Calm, focused, deeply loving, peaceful in a way that's rare and magnetic. And perhaps most beautiful of all is that Cancer goats don't just want this world for themselves, they want to build it with others. They're quiet visionaries who dream of spaces where people feel safe, understood, and valued. Their goals often include helping others heal, grow, and find comfort in a chaotic world. Whether they're designing a classroom, nurturing a child, writing a memoir, or opening a cozy shop on a quiet street, their aim is always the same: to make life a little warmer, a little softer, a little more human. Their legacy is not made of grand achievements, it's found in the lives they've touched, the environments they've transformed, and the quiet magic they've left behind. In this way, their life becomes not just a journey, but a sanctuary, not just for them, but for everyone lucky enough to step inside it. So, if you ever meet someone who blends soft smiles with deep thoughts, who listens more than they speak, and who carries a quiet strength beneath their sensitivity, you just might be looking at a Cancer goat. They won't be the loudest voice in the room, but they'll be the one you remember. Not because they try to impress, but because they make you feel something, understood, comforted, important. There's a rare stillness to their presence, like emotional gravity, subtle but deeply anchoring. You'll notice how they look at people when they speak, how they hold silence without fear, how they ask the kind of questions that reveal they're not just hearing you, they're absorbing you. In a world that moves too fast and listens too little, a Cancer goat moves intentionally. They live with purpose. They feel with precision. Their softness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's survival. And it's strength, disguised as gentleness. These are the people who will remember the details you've long forgotten. The ones who save movie tickets from your first date. The ones who bring soup when you're sick without being asked. The ones who know when to speak and when to simply sit beside you in quiet solidarity. They don't need to announce their loyalty, they live it. If they let you in, it's not by accident. It's because they've chosen you. And once you're in their heart, you're not just a friend or a partner, you become part of their emotional ecosystem. They'll invest in you, care for you, check in on you, and silently root for your happiness even when you're far away. You won't always see their devotion, but you'll feel it. Every day, in small, beautiful ways. But don't mistake their softness for fragility. Beneath their gentle surface is a steel-spined strength that doesn't break, it bends. They can weather more than you'd think. They'll hold space for your chaos while managing storms of their own. They're not afraid of darkness, they just won't let it define them. There's a quiet resilience in their soul, built from years of internal growth, deep reflection, and a lifetime of feeling things deeply in a world that often tells them to toughen up. They don't need to be loud to be powerful. Their power is in their stillness, their consistency, their capacity to remain kind in a culture obsessed with hardness. And that's its own kind of heroism. So yes, if you ever meet someone who wraps their care in quiet gestures, who responds to pain with compassion rather than judgment, who lets their eyes speak more than their words, stop and take notice. You've met someone rare, someone deeply human, someone who will change you, not with fireworks, but with warmth that lasts longer than any spark. Want to discover more cosmic combos like this? Hit that like button, subscribe for future deep dives, and check the description for more videos on astrology, personality, and the quiet magic of being fully, beautifully human. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and maybe give your Cancer goat friend a call. They probably miss you, but are too shy to say it.